We live in a world measured by how many doors swing open, how many hands we shake, how many footsteps echo down the hallway to our hearts. We are told that presence is a blessing, absence a curse. And yet, there's a peculiar paradox that lies quietly beneath the surface. Those who have tasted genuine, spiritual awakening often find themselves longing for less company, not more. The soul that awakens begins to close its doors, not out of disdain, but devotion. The spiritually awake don't like visitors, not because they dislike people, but because they have discovered something within that is too delicate for constant interruption. You sense it, don't you? That unspoken longing for silence, for the space between words. The spiritually awake carry a kind of invisible fortress, built from years of listening to their own breath, tracing the outline of their shadow, feeling the slow turn of the seasons inside their chests. Visitors, no matter how well-intentioned, bring a gust of wind to that fragile garden. Each knock, each voice stirs the stillest waters. But why? Why does awakening, a state so often described as loving, compassionate, heart-open, lead to such a craving for solitude? Because awakening isn't about becoming more available. It's about becoming more attuned. It is the art of learning to hear the music beneath the noise, the story beneath the words. When you awaken, you realize that every encounter leaves an imprint. Every guest brings in a trace of the outside world, and the spiritually awake are careful, almost reverent, in guarding what they allow into their sacred space. It's not arrogance, it's stewardship. You walk into a room where someone is awake and the air feels thicker, quieter. You might even feel unwelcome, but this is not because you are unworthy. It is because you are entering a space curated by the soul for soulfulness. The truly awake person is not lonely. They are alone, intentionally. They have become the gardener of their own consciousness, weeding out distraction, pruning away unnecessary conversation, watering the seeds of deep reflection. Remember the masks we all wear? Social masks, friendly masks, polite masks. The spiritually awake, over time, find these masks growing heavy. They shed them not out of rebellion, but relief. In solitude, the soul breathes. It stretches its limbs. It dares to show its shadow, not the one shaped by other people, but the one shaped by truth. Visitors arrive, and the masks return, and suddenly the soul feels cramped, obligated to perform, to play host. There's a home in every heart, and most keep the welcome mat neatly dusted. The spiritually awake, on the other hand, start to lock the doors, not out of fear, but love for the silence, for the sanctity, for the music that only plays when the house is empty. You see, awakening is a kind of returning, coming home to yourself after years of wandering. And when you find home, the noise of visitors becomes less enticing, more disruptive. At the heart of spiritual awakening lies a delicate truth. Presence is a double-edged light. During your journey inward, you crave connection, soothing company, wisdom from others. But the deeper you travel, the more distracting those footsteps become. You begin to notice the subtle shiver when someone enters your sacred interior. Like a breeze stirring papers you've spent months arranging. You don't avoid visitors because you dislike their company. You avoid them because you're mid-conversation with your own soul. You're listening for the whispers that only appear in stillness. You've come to honor the fragile ecosystem inside, a balance of light and dark, a dance of questions and answers, a rhythm untouched by outside hands. This is the reason the spiritually awake know that every presence costs a little bit of peace. Every conversation is a transaction. It is not that they don't care for others. It is that they care so deeply for the silence they have fought to preserve. Visiting requires adaptation, negotiation, shifting of energy. Awakening, on the other hand, asks for surrender to solitude, to spaciousness, to the vast horizon unfurling inside. Let's talk about the shadow, the part of you that awaits in quiet rooms and silent hours. Most of us keep our shadows well hidden, lest visitors find them unsettling. The spiritually awake do not flinch. They sit with their shadows, share tea, ask questions that cannot be answered in polite company. This is why visitors become difficult. They interrupt the shadow work, the healing, the integration. There's psychology at play here. Jung taught us that the deeper into the self we travel, the more we encounter not just light, but darkness, old wounds, ancient memories, lost fragments of ourselves. The spiritually awake linger in these places, not out of morbid fascination, but devotion. They know transformation happens underground, away from prying eyes. Visitors, though kind, ask the soil to remain undisturbed. So the awake soul retreats, not from people, but for people, so they may return whole, soft, unmasked. It's not ego, it's honesty. Awakened souls have no interest in performing for others, in maintaining a persona, in entertaining distraction. They long for genuine connection, not casual contact. And connection, for them, is not achieved by constant visitation. It is achieved by joining in momentary, intentional communion. Sometimes this happens with another soul, but more often it happens alone. Solitude is seen as suspect in a world that prizes visibility. Loneliness is considered an illness. But for the spiritually awake, solitude is medicine. The deeper you go, the softer your voice becomes. You begin to move through the world gently, tenderly, unwilling to shout above the noise. Visitors are loud, even when silent. They bring waves that disrupt the stillness, vibrations that shift the air. There's a mirror in every spiritually awake home, and in that mirror, you see yourself without adornment. The presence of others distorts the reflection just a little. The visitors bring with them their own images, their own wounds, dreams, anxieties, and the mirror becomes a window. The window becomes a door, and the door soon invites more footsteps. The awake soul notices the difference. They crave the original reflection, the undisturbed image. Maybe, in the end, the spiritually awake don't dislike visitors. They simply prefer presence to performance, depth to distraction, truth to noise. They have learned to cherish the rare moments when the universe converses with them directly in the language of silence. You feel it, don't you? The longing for quiet, the hunger for your own voice echoing in your own chambers. You're not antisocial. You're attuned. You protect what is sacred the way a musician protects their best melody. To awaken spiritually is to become a custodian of your own soul. And visitors, no matter how gentle, make different custodians. You crave the moment after the door closes, when the house sighs and the music resumes. You love with quiet devotion, and sometimes loving others means loving them from a distance. The illusion of control dissolves. In awakening, you no longer seek to manage the impressions others have of you or the expectations they bring. Instead, you practice acceptance for your solitude, for your boundaries, for the space between hearts. You start to understand the greatest hospitality you can offer is authenticity. And authenticity sometimes requires closing the doors and inviting no one in. You were never avoiding life. You were walking toward yourself. And in that walk, every step away from the crowd is a step into the center. Every moment of silence is a conversation with all that you are, all that you were, all you may become. The spiritually awake retreat, not from fear, but from a profound recognition that the soul is a garden best tended in peace. Visitors will come and go, but the flowers that bloom in solitude, those will never wilt. So let us end quietly. Let the world continue outside. Let the door remain closed for now. You are not missing out. You are tuning in. Let this thought linger in silence. Sometimes the greatest company is your own shadow, resting quietly beside you as the sun sets and the world grows still.